Live streaming is on.
All right, just waiting on the pastor.
And ask y'all to just say a few things. Hello, test 1, 2.
Test one, 2. Mic check.
Great. Awesome.
Should I keep my microphone muted until I'm asked to speak?
No, it's not necessary.
Okay.
It's not unless there was like some loud feedback coming off of your mic. It wouldn't be that bad. I wonder where the pastor is.
Maybe he got a last minute call.
Let's see.
Hira, would you like me to wait until he joins before I put you on the page?
Yeah.
Great.
Is that him?
No, that was my computer.
There he goes.
No. Can you hear me, guys?
You can.
Loud and clear.
Yes. Yes, we can.
There he is.
Awesome. If y'all are ready, I'm about to make it live on the home page. Do we feel ready?
Everybody ready?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm ready. If you guys are ready.
All right, we're ready.
All right, here you'll be live in about 10 seconds. See you later. We're live.
Hello, everyone. My name is Eli Hero Vincent, and I'm here simply to be a vessel of truth. The Black Caucus movement is a stage stemmed from a relentless pursuit of a systematic oppression of our people and our unwavering mental fortitude and desire to overcome it. We have invited leaders and warriors from all across our community to sit down and discuss the issues that restrict our advancement and put forth tangible yet radical solutions so that we may once again thrive as a people. So, with us today, I have the very great honor and pleasure to introduce Dr. Tracy Smith. She is the first African American principal in Sleepy Hollow High School in Sleepy Hollow, New York. She is the uh, only one that's ever worked there, and also the second, only two of three Black people that work in that whole institution. So it is a great honor and a great pleasure to have her here on the Black Caucus Movement discussion. Thank you, Ms. Tracy.
Thank
Dr.
you for
Tracy.
having me here.
Also, I have the pleasure of introducing a great, powerful man who, on his platform, has amassed a great following. Thank you to the blessings of God in using him as a tool and a vessel himself. His name is Pastor Elijah the Third,
Hello.
Elijah Bryant III. Thank you, Mr. Elijah, Pastor Elijah. It's a
Yes.
pleasure to have you here.
Thank you. The pleasure is all mine. Thank you both.
Absolutely, absolutely. So today's discussion is simply about uh, the entanglement abolition. And what that means is we have a system that's in place that is to be more than rocky at this moment. And no matter who you are or where you come from or what you believe in, this abolition that we are pushing for, that we are moving toward, you seem to have no choice but to be a part of it. We want to discuss how we are moving toward this abolition and how we are taking part in it in a positive way and how we can bring together the people to understand the history of this abolition movement and where is it stemming from. So today I first want to talk to Pastor, can't mixing you guys up, Dr. Smith, about your experience in the educational system and how what you're working on today. So could you go in a little bit about what you're experiencing today and what you're working on?
So currently, I just to give you a little background, I'm at Sleepy Hollow High School, as you said, and my population of the school demographics, we have 7% are African American, and 30% is white, 60% is a Latino community. And right now, we're in a place where not only is it diverse racially, it's also diverse economically speaking. And there's quite the divide amongst the kids. But the one thing that's bringing us all together right now is just the civil unrest that's happening in our world. And I hosted my very first town hall meeting virtually with students this past Friday. The majority of the students that participated were all white students, and they were just open vessels themselves. They wanted to hear my own stories dealing with racism, some of the struggles I've had right within that building, being the first African American principal in this school, and just being so open and honest and transparent with them about my experiences have just kind of opened a door for me to have this dialogue with students and to raise their awareness about what's going on in the world around them. And what I'm finding from them is that I'm like a living contradiction. They had very limited experiences for African Americans prior to me, and to meet someone who is Black, who has a doctorate degree, who is the leader of this school, where there are not really any other leaders of color, it boggles them. So for them to kind of hear my own experiences with racism, it humbled them in a sense, and it humbled me because it made me see that not everyone that's not of color is against us. There are people who genuinely out there that just have not had any experiences with Black people or people of color, and it's a burden for us to take on, to have to educate and raise awareness. But at the same time, I feel like it's an honor for me to be able to lead the charge on that and begin to change the narrative about what they've been hearing about Black people and what they've come to know about the Black experience. So that's kind of where we are right now. We're in this distance learning. So, schools are closed. We're doing everything online right now as we're doing this platform tonight. But to have this virtual town hall meeting and to get the response I had, right now I'm working with a group of students, and we're planning one for next week, our last week of school, to continue this dialogue and to come up with some actionable things. What can we do to make what's happening in our world right now count? so that we're not making this a hashtag moment. We're not making this, something that everybody is riding right now. We're trying to come up with some ideas of how can we deal with the civil unrest that's right within our school community. And I'm letting the students kind of facilitate that conversation. And I'm just there to be a guide and to help them navigate through that. So I'm just honored to be in this place. It's been a difficult road that I've been on at Sleepy Hollow, but I'm very fortunate to have this opportunity and to have this moment, because I really feel like if this wasn't happening in our world right now, I don't know if I would have had another avenue to have this conversation with students who don't look like me. So, as a lot of people are wrongly capitalizing off this moment, I'm capitalizing off of this from a standpoint of just educating students and raising awareness and just showing them the truth. And I think it's on us to reveal that.
And I completely agree. I want to come back to the fact that you guys been home learning for the last, how many weeks now?
Over a month now, 11 weeks,
Over
3 months, just about.
Okay. Yeah, so I definitely want to step back for a second, but I want to come back to what you're talking about there and see how it affects your small population, your small community of black children that attend the school and are graduating. I want to readdress that. But first, I want to go to the pastor, and I want to know a little bit about you, Pastor, and what you've been working on recently.
Yeah, for sure. First of all, very inspiring. Thank you very much for standing in that gap, just showing students something different, as you said, and the different is very good in this case. So thank you for that. As far as myself, now it's not going to sound great at that, because dealing with kids and dealing with the youth is just like everything to me. So I'm just like, why didn't you ask me first? But as far as myself, I've had a lot of, I like to think that I've had a lot of different lifetimes. Like, I'm 30 years old and I feel like I've had like 4 or 5 different lives. But right now in my life, I've just become a pastor. My wife and I are working on a ministry called Church, which is because of 19, we're doing a lot of online things, whether it be summits, Bible studies. A lot of the things that we do are answering a lot of questions that people have about religion. We see that discrimination comes in forms, and especially during religion, especially in our community. When it's Christian religion, you have a lot of people that are like, white man's religion, all this different stuff. So our platform is more so answering all of these different kind of people have and questions that people have about the Bible. We like to go at it from a way because we're God-made. A lot of people say they're self-made, God-made people. We have full faith in that, and we like read that in that way. So I think that we all have different sectors and ways that they, connect with people. Ours is definitely through Jesus. So that's what we're working on for ourselves right now. And then as pertains to the Black community, solely, we're working on the Black Focus Society, which was called the Focus Society up until literally like 2 hours ago. And just like Doctor said, it's this situation in time right now is so pivotal and so essential because we are able to speak in a different way than we were before. I can't remember the Rodney King situations. I can't remember some of these things that people marched for, our ancestors, our mothers, our aunts marched for. But this time we're here. This time I'm an adult. This time I can actually do something about it. So while it is a very sobering thing, and of course very, very sad, I am happy for the situation. I am happy for the opportunity. I wish no one had to die for the opportunity. And I know that things happen 24/7. Happy that the media is giving this the opportunity, not the opportunity, the attention are giving it, because we are able to have these dialogues with our friends, maybe that we weren't able to pass. So for us, Black Focus Society, we're going to be focusing on a lot of issues of our society, and that's not just police brutality, but also police advocacy, also education, things with the economy, making sure that they can make business moves and understand different that maybe other communities understood a lot earlier. Before I became a pastor, I was very successful in the Forex market, foreign exchange trading. So I'm a trader by profession, by trading, and our communities know nothing about it whatsoever. Like, not many people know at all, but our communities for sure. Like, what? No, we're not even about to even. No, y'all, you have that. Yeah, we'd much rather pick up the basketball or football or do something different. I know one thing, I wasn't trying to learn trading, but that's, what I do as far as income. And I know that it's very important to not have money anxieties and to pull yourself out of certain situations and to be different products of your environment. But we'll get deeper into that. But that's what I'm working on right now, the Black Focus Society, to really just focus on all of those different causes that we see are main issues and to give a platform for everyone that cares about different issues. Everybody doesn't care, but everybody doesn't want to put all of their energy towards police brutality. Some people want to put it towards education. So our society gives people that opportunity to speak to all causes.
I definitely want to know more about how do you want to apply some of those causes. How do you want to build and organize and put forth the resources to some of those causes and kind of break them down so that we could have those discussions and fall in line to where we can best fit in as well, for sure. I want to pose a question to the doctor before we really talk about how we are entangled in this abolition and how moving forward the steps that we need to take. I'd like to go back a little bit to our history about how the abolition movement rose, and about how some of these things we're dealing with today is already is why we're happening. So, doctor, I would like to know, how is racism affected in our educational assimilation? How has that been a factor in assimilation, and what does that mean for us today?
I think it's been a factor in education on just so many levels. I mean, you see disparities between, kids of color and white students and who make it into our honors and our advanced placement classes. You see disparities in the students who are able to graduate from high school and go on to a university or college versus those who are, going to the military or workforce or a community college. And I've learned in the 4 years I've been a principal, I've learned not to minimize those pathways, because those are also pathways for students. Everybody's not cut out to go to college. Everybody's not cut out for a university. There's nothing wrong with serving our country in the military. Probably need it more today than ever before. But there is a disparity in the numbers and who chooses those pathways versus those who have to take those pathways, or those who get to go to college or to a university, if that makes sense. You also just see disparities and the students brought this up in our town hall meeting, which was, I thought was interesting, that I had a lot of white students bring up in our conversation that they don't appreciate the history curriculum that we have going on right now. They said, we understand that teachers are teaching to the test, that a lot of the curriculum that we have is all focused around the New York State Regents exams and the AP exams and just standardized testing. And teachers are under pressure to have to teach to these different assessments. But students feel like they're being cheated, that they're not being told the complete history, that, there's certain months in a year, like Black History Month, where they're going to hear about the very same, African Americans that everybody already knows about, the Rosa Parks, the Martin Luther Kings, but no one is really going in on history and really exposing, the ethnicities and history and accomplishments of other ethnic groups. And as I said in the beginning of my conversation, the majority of my students are from Dominican Republic and from Ecuador. How much of that is really reflected in our curriculum and just in our instructional practices. Something I've been working on with my teachers is, how do we create a safe space for everyone, where everyone feels included, where there isn't this natural divide that happens, or that you can visibly see. How do we create more of an inclusive educational community? So it takes everybody's efforts to change that. Some of this stuff is systemic. Some of it is rooted and embedded in our educational system. And it's going to take more than some town hall talks and some professional developments to change that. You know, it's frustrating as a principal to feel like your hands are tied and there's only so much that you can do.
Well,
And
why is that system so close to only teaching a certain history?
because it speaks to the higher systems that we're teaching from. You know, when you're talking about New York State educational standards that govern our educational curriculum, our policies, all of those things are, you know, I hate to say it, but all of those are rooted in, and I'm trying very carefully. I'm treading very carefully.
Hey, this is a safe space.
But a lot of that is racist. I mean, the pastor can confirm that. You can confirm that too, Hero, based on you guys are a lot younger than I am, but you know what the educational system looked like when you were going to school. So imagine, you know, where did that come from? You know, it wasn't just the principal. You know, it came from your state system. It came from, you know, who's governing our curriculum and what we're being taught. It goes back to even the training that teachers get when they become teachers. When you're in college to become an educator, you know, what you're learning is not the whole story, and that's what you're being trained to teach. You're even told that you can't share your religious beliefs or your political beliefs in the classroom. And interestingly enough, I know I keep going back to this, but in my town hall meetings, students brought that up to me. You know, we don't like the fact that our teachers can't take a stance on a position. And that's why they enjoyed listening to me so much, because I was so real with them with, you know, how I have felt as a Black person in a school where there are very few of us, and the different experiences I've had, and how that speaks to racism, how that speaks to, you know, systemic racism and implicit bias and all of those things. So I think it's higher systems that are the problem. And my role as well as the pastor who takes a spiritual, you know, pathway on this, we're trying to dismantle these systems that have been in place for so long. And that's where that entanglement for me comes in.
So where's the first, how do we, before I pose this question to the pastor, how do we affect those upper echelon um, systems that are perpetrating these issues to the children? Like, they're creating these systems and they're starting it young, this conditioning young. How do we affect, I know how we affect it, well, we'll get to how we affect it in the schools, like instantly or immediate effect. But how do we start the change in the upper systems? What kind of tactics should we use to affect that?
Is that posed to me or the
Yeah,
pastor?
that's close to you.
No. Well, I'm starting to see some of that change because of this particular situation. Just since George Floyd's murder, there have been more emails from our state systems, the New York chancellors who oversee our educational systems. They've been having all of these forums and have been sending emails out to all the New York City schools, and I can only speak for New York, about how we need to change some of our practices, how we need to use this moment. And they've been providing resources about racism. I mean, this is the first time, and I have 25 years of experience in education, and this is the first time in these 25 years that I've ever seen these higher systems using these major moments like this to be teachable moments, you know, about racism and enlightenment and raising awareness. So I think that we're beginning to break down some of those strongholds that have been over our educational system. I think, as the pastor said, this is a moment that is really, you know, sad as it is, it's becoming a defining moment of change.
Hmm. It is. I do see a lot of those moments, and I feel like this is an opportunity. Just being on this platform and seeing how such influential people like yourselves have blessed me with your time and your energy, and to a platform that I just started because I knew that we needed something to talk about and discuss these issues that are plaguing us and start building and working towards something. And for you guys as people of influence in my community, who I would admire and look up to, to offer me that space and that energy to do that, I see that there is a change and there's a call for it. There's a need for it. And so as we're coming together, we see this kind of growth and this progression towards something that's more positive. And so what Pastor would understand when I say this is birthing pains.
Oh my God, birthing. You don't know.
So it's gonna hurt, it's gonna hurt, but it's gonna provide and birth something very, very beautiful out of it. And past that, so with that said, I want to kind of go a little bit spiritual with you. It's a two-part question. A wise woman once said, that was on the show, a spiritual revolution has to happen before a physical one has to happen. And so I know that you have a great deal of experience when it comes to being a youth in the South and experiencing racism. How do we pose that revolution, and what was that experience that you had?
I mean, the experience that I have with racism is I grew up in the South, like you said, in North Carolina. It was a county called Johnston County. You guys can look it up. Smithfield, North Carolina, had the KKK sign for the longest time. So I grew up with people that admittedly in the Ku Klux Klan. I've had different situations where back in the day when the genocide happened, I was a high school. I was still a senior when all these different injustices were happening. We put together a situation where we were going to wear black, unity of those people. And during that same time, all of the other students, they decided to bring Confederate flags on their trucks. And the same, literally, like it became a mess, right? So from very young, I understood. And it was funny. I just was telling my wife the other day, I can remember coming from a place born in South Carolina where I had never seen a white person. Literally. I remember the first time I ever saw a white person. And I said, "Ma, he yellow." What's not yellow? It was like, he's not yellow, he's white. And I was like, what? Like, I don't get it. And now I'm thinking about it. Like, man, all the music I listened to, I watched on TV, I never saw a person in person that was white. And then we moved to this place that was majority white. I was the minority. And we were in the rough places all of a sudden. And you had white people who were also in those places. And then some people that were on a way higher scale. So I saw racism a lot different than what a lot of people will, because I saw people that looked like me that were in the same place as me. But then I saw them live in the same neighborhoods as the same kids that were driving Bentleys to school. So I experienced racism on the level of the black people that better as far as financially, they treated you like the N-word too. Treated you like you were nothing too. And then the white people that were on your level financially treated you like you were nothing. And then the white people that already, everybody treated the black person have anything like they were nothing. So racism ran a little deeper for me, because not only was I sitting beside people that I had to make my partner A class, and then they don't do any of the work at all. But hey, because your boy can debate. But only if I sit beside them. But also having to sit on the bus with a few people that are off neighborhoods, and they treat me just maybe even worse. So racism is definitely multi-leveled for me in those regards of how I grew up. Having to fight, literally ripping down Confederate flags from the trucks those days. So I feel like I've been in this constant back and forth for a very long time. The race, growing up, I was like, I'm gonna date a whole bunch of white girls, make their daddies mad. Like, that was the thing, right? I was like, damn, I don't like you, but I know your daddy's not gonna like this. And I did that because I was a young kid, and I saw racism, and I projected, and I wanted to be heard, and I felt invisible, and I wanted to do anything that I was good at. I wanted to continue to do. So if it were, messing around with girls, fighting, rap music, whatever it was to bring me attention is what I did. But it was all encompassing a race thing, because regardless of how good you got at something, you still was just a little black dude. Regardless of how good your grades were, you still was just a little black dude. That didn't matter. Like, none of it mattered. So, during school, I've been in fist fight, physical altercations with my resource officer. share the share. Ooh. All kinds of different stuff, right? Like I've been in fights. I don't even know how I'm out. Honestly, just the things that I've done as a 16-year-old Black boy in the place that I grew up, I should have never got. And I was very proud with things, and God blessed me to do those. Now, that's what my experience is with racism. What's the second part of your question? Don't go too deep. These KKK.
But actually, the second part is I want to change it a little bit. I'll change the question because of the story that you gave me. How do you feel like you were delivered from such an experience, and how has that experience crafted your? Because an experience like that, I have similar stories, as I'm sure a lot of people like us have, and I know that we have a tendency to put down that trauma. It can be very traumatic for us because we almost feel like we have no place to go. Right?
Exactly.
You go to school, you're abused in school, you come home, you still got problems at home, especially when you're dealing with an economically impoverished position. So you don't really have the same resources to like actually go somewhere else and talk to somebody about the stuff you face and everywhere else. So at what point were you delivered from these things where you knew how to balance yourself and push yourself into a space that is going to be more beneficial for you?
That came latter years. I struggled with wanting to be accepted by a Black crew that they just weren't. They weren't as much as I was, I'd say. Like, I'm not going to say I was more intelligent than them, maybe in certain areas, but not in every. But
right, of course.
I was chastised by them for, being in AP classes. And then, from those AP students was, again, is this affirmative action? Why? No. So they kind of fight, right?
Yeah.
So in a classroom where the teacher's literally referring to me as Black guy, not my name. We'll go through. But when I was 21 years old, there was a guy at a basketball game. He was a parent of one of the students, and it was a big rivalry, Clayton High versus West. And it's so like big rivalry. You're not even supposed to sit on the opposite team. Long story short, this guy got mad, and he's 33, 21, or he's 43, 21. He tells me to shut the bleep up, you dirty N-word, and pushes my head like that. And this is in front of a Boy Scout troop. I always about 17 of them. One of them were white. No, one of them were Black, sorry. And I thought to myself in that very moment, very quickly, if I do not go ham and beat this dude down right think that it's okay for all of those boys to call this and say this, and they're gonna. It's okay to do so. So I was in an impossible situation, which I had been in a lot of times, where I didn't know if I wanted to be accepted by the Black people or the white people. Then I start thinking that the white people like me better because they're hanging out with me. They don't hate on me, but they just weren't hating on me in public. They was calling me the N-word behind closed doors. I had to really figure out that good people are good people and bad people are bad regardless of color. But in that very night, when that dude did that to me, and I thought I hit him twice, but I hit him like 10 times, on the way to jail is when my breakthrough came. But what I'm gonna have to do is, stop reacting so much. Because I don't feel that we'll ever get rid of racism. Because I think that even in the Black society, you have light skin versus dark. You got people saying, you ain't Black enough because you biracial. So I don't think we'll ever get rid of racism. I think that we just need to handle it better. Like my brother always told me, well, if you go to the water park, you're going to get wet. So if you get in a fight, you're going to get... Okay. I accept that there's going to be racism. I'm just going to roll with these punches. I just need to be able to fight back and have an equal playing field to fight back. So I began to start thinking about, God put me in certain situations for a reason. I fought every day of my life, but now I'm learning how to fight in a better way. It's one way to just be a street brawler, and then one thing to actually learn how to kickbox and learn how to put that energy in the right things. And now you're not just hands, you're using your knees and elbows and everything. You have to be able to do it Yeah, I know these analogies. But, I'm thinking to myself, well, I got to stop wrong. In the Bible, guess what it says? It says that Satan took Jesus to a mountain and used his word, God's word, against Jesus and said, look, this is what the word says, jump. Your father's going to help you jump. He'll save you. Don't worry about it. Let Jesus heal. No, I can't just allow them to take the words and flip it against me. I'm going to take your law and flip it against you. So instead of me acting the way that you think that I'm going to act, walking up in here with my pants low or be speaking a certain way, I'm going to speak the way that you speak. Mm-hmm. I'm going to come and use your language up again, and I'll win because it's right. I don't have to fluster. I don't have to reach. I don't have to have fallacy. I can stick straight to the fact. The facts are, the fact is, I'm a victim. The fact is, a victim doesn't mean that I'm helpless. I'm a victim that continues to persevere. But you got to be able to come at it in your mind of, is this even working? Me fighting, I done beat up people that call me N-word. This not working. I'm still
calling you.
Still going to jail. And then I thought to myself, you know what? I said, guess what? What? Look, my little son trying to get all up in the cameras now. Want to come say hi real quick? Okay, say hi. Hi.
What's up, boss? What's your name?
Legendary.
Mm-hmm.
Legendary?
Adorable.
What's up, Legend?
All right, go back. Okay, he talk enough, trust me. But I'm thinking in the front seat because the officer actually graduated 2 years before me, so she knew me. So I'm thinking in the front seat of this car, well, dang, I'm in the front seat. I got handcuffs on, but I'm in the front seat. She ain't treating me bad. It don't matter. You're in the front seat going to jail.
Right.
You're still going to jail. And she thinks that you were right for punching him, but she's still taking you to jail. And everybody that's hearing about it, as they fingerprint you and take your mugshot picture, they saying, dang, he deserved it. Dress out. He really deserved that. Open pie A. Yeah, we got. They all telling me I was right for it, but I'm still going to jail. So I had to really think in that moment. I thought to myself, I'm about to stop fighting them with what doesn't work. I have to fight them with something different. I have to use my intellect in a different way. I have to be successful and be able to help someone that's in the same situation that I'm in to be able to tell them the same thing. That'll be the time. I definitely just wanted to change it up and go at it.
That's powerful. And I noticed that it's almost as if, the truth shall set you free. Once you start, you have the power in your words and your voice. And if you just are honest and speak that truth out of love, it's going to set you free. You don't have to be bound. You don't have to be mentally strangled by all these outside and external forces that look to destroy you and look to keep you in chains and tangled up and throw you in a cage, because the truth is what God has for you is for you.
Exactly.
What God has for you is for you. So that as long as you speak the truth, as long as you speak to the truth and not the anger and not the hatred and not the vengeance, then it shall set you free from all the outside and external forces that look to bring you down. It's the evil. It's the evil that keeps whispering in your ear that says, yeah, you want to hit him, don't you? You want to punch him in the mouth, don't you? Go ahead and do it. You know what I'm saying? It's cool. Go ahead.
I didn't even need a voice. Trust me.
Yeah.
Found Jesus now, y'all.
It was already there. It was like, it was itching. I get the itch sometimes, I know. Dr. Tracy, though, when we're talking about these systems, when we're talking about coming up through these systems and applying what we know that is the restrictor of our development, right? These systems that are in place. How do we organize? What kind of systems specifically should we do to affect these to really have these changes happen?
Well, if it's in terms of affecting change in our education and our curriculum, I think that's like on a higher level. That's your state level. That's your, writing to your governors, writing to your mayors. And I have to say, I have to give it up to our governor, Cuomo, who has been all over the racial aspect of this situation. And I think his leadership has been impacting like the chancellors and some of these other local leaders that are directly impacting our educational systems, and really putting it out there that we need to start having more equity in our classrooms, more cultural competency of teachers to learn how to deal with students of different ethnicities. We're beginning to see that change happening. But I think because of this situation, those changes and the urgency for it, I think is going to be a lot stronger. So it is happening, and it starts on our state level. It starts, within our government, and that's beginning to happen.
It's me. Okay. I want to see that. I hope that happens because I come from a position where I've seen it be told to me over and over again. And throughout historically throughout situations they have said we're going to do this and we need to do that and we're going to do this and we need to do that, but we still end up in where we are right now. So I want to see that happen, but my question is, um, seeing that you have these students partaking in these conversations and they're becoming more and more educated, but yet we still have 40 million to 50 million unemployed. There's no jobs to look at when we're coming out of college or high school or anything like that. So what are your kids, knowing that you had 800 students, what are your kids looking for in your senior class? What do they have to look forward to? And what should we do to put some system in place for them to look forward to when they're coming into a job market? If there are kids that don't want to go to college, and if there are kids that get out of college and are prepared to go into the workforce, but there's no work there for them. What are they looking forward to right now? What are they speaking to, or are they speaking to in anger?
What are they speaking to in anger right now is just the uncertainty. Just the uncertainty. And I'm there with them because we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what the job market is going to look like as a result of this pandemic. We don't know what's going to happen as we come out of this, and we have all these different phases of reopenings of our our city and our states. We don't know what's on the other side. So I'm also a Christian. So going back to what the pastor was saying, I preach empowerment to my students. I try to encourage my senior class. We already had our graduation ceremony because it was recorded. And in my speech, I talked about, that they are, and I hate to sound cliche, but they are our future. And our young people, I think, are so much better equipped in some ways than like my generation was. They are far more tech savvy. They are far more advanced when it comes to just the different tools that are at their disposal that I didn't have growing up, and I've just been empowering them to create new platforms for themselves. Use these moments to capitalize off your own talents, reinvent how our digital tools are being used right now. If you don't think their job market is going to be there for you, make that happen for yourself. Start creating, using those talents that you have within you. I have so many students that are in my school that are not college bound because they have no desire to go to college, but they're so talented. I have a couple of kids that come into my mind right now, kids of color, and they're like designers, like literally they know how to design clothes. I had one of my students, he came to me one day, was like, Dr. Smith, I peep your game, you so tight with your clothes and your fashion. I think I can feel your vibe. If I design something for you, will you wear it? I'm like, of course I would wear it. He took some overalls, some blue jean overalls,
You coming like Cosby Show with one sleeve longer than the other.
It wasn't bad though. This wasn't bad. It wasn't that bad. And he put my name on one leg, and he put his like staple design. He added some other fabric to it. I wore it to school, and I just, I worked it out myself. I wore a blazer, with it, over it. I had my Doc Martens on. And all day long, people were asking me, where'd you get those jeans from? Where'd you get that from? And I could proudly say that, that the student made it, and I had a leadership meeting that day. So I had to go meet with like the superintendent, all the other principals, and they all have on suits and ties and they're dressed up. And I'm sitting there with my blazer and my overall jeans and my Doc Martens. And they know better than to criticize my clothing because I wear what I want to wear to work. But I was so proud to display that a student designed this for me. And I gave that student encouragement that, man, maybe I do have a future in this, So I try to come at them from a place of what are some talents you already have right now that you can build upon, because we can't depend on our economy. We don't know what's going to happen if you go to college and you come out and there's no job market. How do you reinvent yourself? How do you brand yourself? And how do you make a space for yourself to be successful? So that's kind of the place I come from with students, and just the importance of having skills. Even if you go to college, even if the student with the most money in their home, they can go to Harvard, Yale, but if they have no individual skills, they can't write. They don't know how to balance a checkbook. They don't have basic mathematical skills. They don't know how to go on an interview. They don't know how to send a professional email. Like, those are basic skills that will carry you very far in life. So I try to keep things practical and positive and just empowering. What is it that you have within you right now that you can identify and build from?
That's very interesting, because what you're talking about is creating this. I have one more question, and I want to bring this back over to the pastor, because he has a lot of experience with recreating yourself. And it sounds like you're talking about what we need as a community ourselves, is being able to rebuild ourselves and rebuild our community, and operate outside of the system that's already there, that's only exploiting us, where we don't benefit
That's
from
right.
it. And so how do we become better to exploit ourselves, and also benefit from the things that we want to exploit, and the talents and the gifts and the skills that we wish to exploit, while bettering our community at the same time?
Mm-hmm.
So is that pretty much what you're
Yes.
saying?
Yes.
Easy. Well, then, Pastor, someone who has so much experience reinventing yourself, how do we create this system of allowing our youth to be more creative and build more things, so that we can start uplifting and creating our future, these new students, these new workers, to not go into a system that's going to just exploit and take away and crumble our ecosystem, and rather, how do we build that back up?
Well, I think it's the number one thing is for sure support, and being able to boost that morale. So whenever you do wear overalls that your student wears, that's something they'll never forget
Mhm.
lives. Like, my principal came up to me and asked me to buy my CD. And I was like, oh God, like, that's what's up, right? So like, they never forget things like that. And those are things that will always, give them that extra battery in their back whenever there is times where it's like, man, nobody's buying my designs, stuff like that. They might thumb through something, that yearbook, and it's like, oh, but you remember that Doc liked it. Literally, that is what's going to be needed, because when we're talking about, people going out and putting their efforts, or letting their goals, talents, and skills die in a graveyard because they're, giving it to corporate or to a system or whatever, whenever they're selling out, to be able to just get a paycheck, that system's already there and it's already abhorred. Like, people already don't like that system. So we don't have to even tell kids, look, don't look at this, look at this. They're already thinking that. Their biggest, their role models are not people that graduated college, most likely these days. We are in we remember Blockbuster. They don't. They convenience. Everything that the kids of the day, and I'm getting older every day, because I'm like, wait, what now? What is that?
Yeah.
So no Blockbuster. And then they don't know that Redbox came along, and all of a sudden Redbox was just swiped away that fast. And now it's Netflix everywhere. And they want that convenience. So college is not convenient. They have uncles that have been working at barbacks for 30 years that have college degrees. It was just about information, I feel like. I think that a degree and everything was dangled. There's certain things that you need a degree in, like being a police officer. You need a police officer. But, with other things, I feel that they dangled it and was like, hey, let's make you go to college, even if you don't need it, just so we can make this money clearly. But what happened? Okay, how am I going? Okay, no, I'm just gonna say it. All the white people I growing up were like, oh yeah, we going to college up until a certain point, and it was like they had a meeting and was like, hey yo, none of our kids going to college no more. That's a scam. And all of a sudden, you started seeing reports that were like, more black people are graduating college than ever before.
Right.
And when you read it, you're like, yo, that's what's up. But then I started thinking about it. I was like, is that because they don't care about it no more?
Mm.
Are they like leaving that behind? Is that of the past now? Where now they're like, no, I know my cousin Ronnie, he became a millionaire off of YouTube, off of Amazon, off of these different things. So it got me to thinking, like, have they figured out something new to where they're like, on to the next? Y'all could have that 4 to 8 years, and that payback, we found something new. And what I've come up with is just the fact that you just have to do whatever is best for you. I have, a brother-in-law that have been going to school since the day he was born to become a. He graduated. He don't know neither. We'd have been to like 9 graduations. When is he graduate? What is happening?
Yep, I got some cousins like that.
That's his path, though, right? Like that's his path, what he needs to do. So I think that it's important if we just open up to society and to our to say, listen, you can do whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you say you can do whatever you want, if I come to you and say, man, I got a program, it's $97, it's all I got. You're thinking, I don't want that. It's either yes or no. But if I come to you and I say, look, I got 3 programs. One's not 197, one's 197, one's 297. Now you have options, and you as the customer, you're subconsciously thinking that you control the situation. But you don't. You're just giving me whatever money that you decided to give me. I'm happy regardless, right? Oh, Boy Scout knock on your door and he like, hey, can I get $10,000 for my mission trip? No. Hey, can I get $2 for Yeah, of course. You just got played. He didn't want that the whole time. He just wanted that $2. So we need to be able to give them the opportunity to decide. A person like myself, I was growing up thinking, oh, I'm going to be a big-time huge rapper. And then I started liking to debate, and I was like, ooh, I like the power this gives me. I like whenever I open my mouth, they don't know that I knew what ethos, pathos, and logos was. I like when I intentions and fallacies. They don't know that I knew basic generalization was. I like that. Then I was like, ooh, I want to be the mayor now. Now I want to be president in 2044. And guess what? Some teachers told me, yeah, that's a stretch. Some teachers told me, yeah, you're probably going to be the president. That's what it is. You probably will be the one that ends up crazy enough doing it. So you have to be able to open up. Myself, I went from that to club promoting to, oh snap, I have a chance to be on TV to rap. I want to be a rapper again. To never mind, I want to be a businessman. I got this popping business. Oh man, I learned how to trade. Multi-level market. I jumped around, but if anybody ever would stand in my way, if everybody collapsed on me and said, nah, don't change, just do what you know, stay rapping and that's it, that's a good profession for you, just like Malcolm X's teacher, I'm going to have a ceiling. But if I open up and just say, you whatever it is you want to be, here's what it is, and I'm going to let you choose. You got the college way, and yeah, that's the system, but if that's what you want to choose, who am I to say no to that?
Right.
Very careful with what we do because we're in a society where our kids, they like to go against the grain. If you say wearing gold is good, they wearing platinum. If you say water is good, Diet Coke is going down. So if you say, yo, the system, we might believe that. But eventually your kids are going to be like, I hate everything dad say. I'm going with the system. I'm going to rebel instead of, this is your choice. I'm going to lay the facts out. And you're strong enough and you're smart enough to decide what's going to be for you. Because you might need to get your doctor. You might need to become a doctor and lead the youth. Might need to become a doctor and help me with my back problem. God, I need a chiropractor if y'all know one. You might need to become a doctor for whatever you need. So I can't tell you not to do that. I can give you information on what this system does and how it cripples your pockets, though.
So then, doctor, how do we? I've heard you can be whatever you want. Obviously, as a kid, most of us have heard you can be whatever you want. You can be an astronaut. You can be president one day, and as we get older, for me, I've realized I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, right?
Amen.
I can do that because he's given me the power. He's given me many, many abilities, many, many talents. And as I, just like yourself, Pastor, as I came up, I know what the gifts that I have, but I don't know how to apply it in the world where it's going to make me successful enough to express it to the rest of the world. Right. So I was going here, I was doing music here, I was writing for artists, I was acting here, I was doing activism here, I was organizing this and doing that, but not really knowing. I know that God has given me all these abilities and these talents, but how do I apply them? How do I put them there? And how do I build a space and create a space where I can be successful and bring the people around me and make them successful as well, because I can't do anything on my own and by myself. So as I got older, without the without the confidence and the faith of knowing that I can do all things through Christ, I felt daunted. So I first want to put out, you can do whatever you want to do. It is absolutely possible to do whatever you want to do because God give you that power to do so. And if you put him first and you let him lead you and orchestrate your steps, he knows the desires of your heart and he will help you get there. And if you're using those talents and those desires of your heart to better his kingdom, you will get there.
Yes.
Absolutely, period. Now, I want to take that and say, or ask the doctor, how do we provide a better space so that we can give these children the opportunity to play with whatever they are skilled at, whatever they are gifted at, whatever, to give them a space in the zone to develop those things. So as we get older in our Black community, where we're hit with all this resistance and this oppression and this idea that, yeah, you can do whatever, but you're going to do it with this obstacle that I put in front of you. How do we remove some of these obstacles and create a space better for these children to succeed in a world where even more and more obstacles have arisen?
I think for me, the work has started in terms of changing the way my teachers view their students, and that's not easy work to do. I came in, kind of exposing some of the disparities in the school and in our classes and in our systems within the building. And when I tried to just give them the data to show that, look, I'm not making this up. Look, I'm not being biased, like for real. If you look at our numbers of kids in our honors classes, our AP classes, and you look at our total number of students, this is not adding up. The data wasn't working. That wasn't enough to move them. So then I kind of moved from that to finding people who look like them, like my teachers, to talk about, how do we view students of color? What are some of the misconceptions you might even have about them? And in that work, and that was professional development, and that this is like 2 years and it works now. I'm starting to slowly hear that narrative change, where teachers are beginning to see their students a little bit differently. I've had students, Hispanic students, come to me and say, Dr. Smith, my teacher told me, why would I ever want to be in an honors class? Why don't you just stay in the E&L classes with all the other kids like yourself, where, it's a family and we're all together. And in their minds, those kids were beginning to see themselves as that. They didn't see that there was another space for them, or that they could go farther than what, the lane that was created for them in school. So it's not enough for me to just empower these students and tell them they can do anything. That's great that I can do that, and I'm going to keep doing that. But I started seeing that the teachers have a lot of influence over our students' lives. As the pastor said, he spoke, passionately about some of his past teachers and some of the people that touched him growing up. These kids are the same, so if I'm not affecting how the teachers are viewing the students, which will in turn affect the way in which they're teaching, what they're teaching, the influence that they're having upon them, then we're not going anywhere. Because it's not enough to have your leader at the helm saying that you can do all things and you can be great. But because I'm not in all those classrooms, I'm not in all the different classes that are happening. But if I can change the way my teachers could see these students and see them all as capable as being successful, you know, that's a start, you know, because I've had teachers even tell me, you know, why am I wasting my time? You know, these kids don't even speak English. They just got to the country. Why are you trying to put them on a fast track to honors? You're just setting them up for failure. I had a teacher tell me that. I had a guidance counselor tell me, well, now that you're allowing students to go into the honors classes, are we going to have to lower the bar and lower our standards for our honors classes? So statements like that was telling for me. It was saying to me, this is how they view kids and people of color. You know, they don't think that we can do anything. They think of us in very limited terms. If I could change the way they're thinking and the way they're speaking to these students, that's going to go a long way. And this is not easy work. You know, this is not, I wish I had like a magic formula that I could just spray in the air and make people do the right thing. But it's mindset work. You know, you're changing how someone views you, how they see you, which in turn impacts how they teach. So that's where I've been working from that angle.
So it sounds like there's a need for some sort of teachers workshops where we can
Yes.
teach more educational, either the history of racism, inherent racism, and um, how do you say where you have racist rhetoric but you don't know it?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the word specifically off the top of my head, but it's something that you keep doing through generation,
Mm-hmm.
because you don't know that you may have some sort of good intention, but your actions are really hurting and stunting the growth of others and people and children
Mm-hmm.
specifically. So if you had, is it possible for you in your position to start implementing workshops
Oh yeah,
like that?
that's
It
what I've
is?
been doing for the past 2 years. I've been having different speakers come in who talk about implicit bias, who talk
Yeah.
about cultural competence, and that's speaking to building a teacher's ability or capacity to teach students of different cultures. You know, because you have, just as you have students who have limited experiences with people of color, you have
Right.
teachers who have
Sure.
limited experiences with people of color. You know, so it sounds very elementary, but you have to teach people how to interact with cultures that are different from theirs. You know, it's work, but it's something that has to be taught. That's part of the education that has to happen. And that's something
Mm.
as I said, I've been working on for the past 2 years in terms of professional development. And I have to say, I didn't even know until one of my speakers came in this year that New York City has a whole standard, a whole framework by which teachers are supposed to be teaching their classes. It's the New York State framework of culturally responsive teaching. And it's a whole list of to-dos and a whole list of how to create classrooms that are welcoming to kids of all cultures, how to frame your different lessons, no matter if it's a health lesson, if it's a math class, if it's an English class. How do you frame those lessons in ways um, that all of your students could relate to? You know, when I was growing up, it was the big thing was how the SATs were biased against kids of color because they would ask certain mathematical questions that an average Black kid wouldn't have any understanding of. You know, so now we progressed, you know, to looking at our larger systems in our educational system that is not reflective of all cultures and changing it from that standpoint. So New York State standards are there. The question though, and the problem is that a lot of schools are not enforcing that. They're not mandating that their teachers get training. It's not enough to just print out that PDF and give it to your teachers. You have to have someone that can walk them through it, talk them through that, and along with that, talk about implicit bias, talk about systemic racism, and how that's played a role in our cultural frameworks and our curriculums. You know, so it's twofold work. You know, it's not just, you know, here's the curriculum and it should be reflective of all cultures. It's also, let me unpack some of your own biases that you have about people of color and changing the way that, as I said, the way they see students of color.
Mm. So I hear it. There's a need for two things. And one is a system where we are mandating people to be educated, right? We're
Yes.
mandating teachers to be educated on race, on identity, on history, on all of these things that they continuously perpetuate year after year. And we need to streamline that across the board of schools that are within, these Black communities, or the lack thereof of when you have Sleepy Hollow, where the population is 7% in the school, and be able to mandate, okay, you have a Black population, period. It's not zero, so you need to be
Right.
educated, period. You have kids coming to your school. We want equality. We want to be able to have equity. And in order
That's
for
right.
that to happen, you have to be educated that these are people too, and not just some aliens coming from a different place,
Exactly.
because they don't understand anything that you've done in your life.
Mhm.
Instead, we need to try to create some system um, of equal learning.
Mhm.
Which brings me back to you, Pastor, and your movement that you're working on with the Black Focus. Is that what you're pushing toward when it comes to education, when it comes to organizing in the community?
Yes, 100%. Tutoring from people that are educators in the community and even outside. For myself, I'm not an educator, but I can educate on certain topics. So I think that we need,
Sure.
on a wide scale, we need tutoring, and we also need peer mentoring.
Mhm.
Whenever I was in high school, I constructed a group called Model, and it was the Men of Distinction, Excellence, and Leadership Skills. And it's still going. But on Saturdays they come together and they eat pizza and they talk to each other. And it started off with those men or young men that were all failing. Every single person that came had F, 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 F. And guess all of them graduated. Every single one of them. And for me, it was something to keep me busy so I wouldn't fight on my senior. I was out of trouble, man. So we put this together, and my principal and all the counselors came together, and they just gave a list of just at-risk students, and we knew most of them, because we went to school with them. But we just found out that these kids really just wanted somebody to talk to.
Mhm.
Kid that was very troubled, who never ever spoke to anybody or anything, and the things that he told us in those meetings, I was like, well, good, like. No, I don't know anybody's had it like him. So, we judge a book by its cover. He
Mhm.
really heavy stuff. And I think that it's important for us to be able to give platforms for them to be able to vent, not just teach them things, because you can have the smartest kid in the world and they can understand what you're saying, but something's in the back of their mind. You know what I mean? Like, I've had some crazy things happen to me. So when I'm 7 years old, yeah, I'm a pretty intelligent cookie, but I got going home that's blocking that. And sometimes, whenever, especially with older kids, you give them a chance to speak to other kids that won't judge them, then they will be able to vent on those topics. So I think it's very important, the work, and especially how the doctor says, the vibes that people give off. I could tell a mile away when my math teacher, Mr. Luke, did not like me. I could tell that before he ever said anything to me. And he told me I was never going to amount to nothing at all, and that he would see my mug shots. He did see my mug shot, but that won't stop. He saw me. He was like,
amounting to something.
he was right about that, but that won't revelation, baby. That won't the end. So, at the end of the day, you have to put these together. And just like what's being said, like how the doc says, we don't have a magic wand. I think that everybody is focused on how are we going to fix this in a year. We can't fix this in a year. This is something that's been going on for 400 years. We're at a very big deficit here. We cannot fix this quickly. Everybody wants to be the next Martin Luther King. Listen, it doesn't matter, fam. Like, what are we doing? What action are we taking for your daughters, my sons, all of our nephews and nieces to really be able to thrive later? Because that's all that really matters now. Right. So I think that more and more people are going to have to take up their cross, and they're going to have to start spending time. We're going to have to be able to be open to tell people, look, I don't care what you can do. If you want to come out here and serve water, we need your help. If you got 40 minutes in today, please come over, because we need a couple more Black males that are in your position just to come and say hi. everybody needs to be able to know that you don't have to be the next dang on Rosa Parks, but we need something from you. Just
Mhm.
something. If everybody can give us 2%, we're going to be a lot better off. We're not going to have everybody getting all burnt out. If I doc, God dang, like y'all finally listening? I told you.
Yeah.
I'm not saying this for my health, yo. Like, come on, people. Like, these people want you to stop speaking in the way that you're speaking and be like, hey, yo, listen. So check this out. We out here hurting. We out here starving. Like, no, everybody give us 2%. Everybody's give us 3%. Whatever you can give us and whatever lend is the way that we're going to be able to come together, and especially on things with education and tutoring. We're going to need everybody to put their in it whatever way that we can.
I want to be able to, what I've seen through this whole discussion is things that we can, as a team, work together on building and creating this space for. And it seems like you guys have already started on the right track. But if we can pull our resources together and pull our efforts together, we can create something and build something that's very, very powerful and very, very strong and structured. And I think that with the focus, the Black Focus movement and Black Caucus movement and the Sleepy Hollow schools and the principals and the doctors that are already implementing some of these stages of growth, we could put together and organize a system where we can start applying it in our schools, so that we not only we're affecting the white community as well, or the Caucasian community as well, by changing their viewpoints on how they see us and how they view us. But we're also giving our Black students and our young minorities an opportunity to see that structure change, and also feel like they do have a future and they do have a space. Because I think a lot of the anger where you see in the young people that are burning down the buildings and looting and this and that, so they really don't see a future. You know, even for myself, I'm 30 as well, and when I was coming out of school, I didn't that time in '08, I didn't see a whole lot of promise. And here I am, 10 12 years later, and boom, it all explodes.
Yeah.
And I was like, see, I told y'all, we got to get it together. We got to get it together. And so I want to be able to pull these voices together and pull these works and these efforts together, so that we can work autonomously, but we also work together. The autonomous work that we do comes to the benefit of us all. You know what I mean? So if we can continue to talk about the solutions, we can do this off of the call, because I actually do have some questions for you guys, and from the people who are watching. And I want to get into that. First question is for you, Doctor. When you see these structures in the school, what is your viewpoint? I know that you can only go so far, but what is your viewpoint on the curriculum that they teach in school relates to Black history and racism, and how is the K-12 structure inhibiting that?
Yeah, I mean, it's frustrating. It's disappointing. It's I can go off on so many tangents on that, so I'm gonna try to be real focused and specific. Because it's like that was like yeah, I think for me, I just try to dismantle the system. I recognize the disparities in our system. I recognize how our system is created to not tell the truth and not tell the whole story. And I know that I only have so much control of that system. But what I can control to some degree is what I'm enforcing and what the training that I'm giving my teachers in my building to focus on. And what I can say is that I have had these conversations with my superintendent over these 4 years that I've been in this district. And from those conversations, he's created this equity team where you have parents, you have staff members, you have students who have been coming together and having conversations like this, and I think that's a step in the right direction. It's, like the pastor said, it doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't change things overnight, but at least the conversations are being had. So to try to go back to that question, I try to dismantle the system as much as I possibly can in terms of the education and the curriculum, And there are constraints, though. There are constraints beyond my control. When it comes down to standardized testing, those are state assessments. I have a responsibility to have, to give these assessments every year. Students need them. It's part of their graduation requirements. So I know that our teachers are teaching to that test, and there's nothing that I can really do about that. But I can help enhance their lessons and enhance the other things that they're teaching by giving them this cultural framework that I spoke about, by giving them training and how to use that, and having more of that dialogue, and providing this ongoing professional development so that they're not just focusing on this biased, curriculum. We are enhancing it.
With petitioning, what would affect this testing process that we know is not a good assessment?
I don't know. I don't know if petitioning is going to be strong enough to change that. But I think one thing is for sure, with COVID happening, the New York State Regents exams are canceled this year. And so a lot of students are kind of given a pass this year. This is the first time in history where these students did not have to take a test to graduate. So a lot of the students who had failed were failing that particular class, and they needed that test to graduate. They don't need it now.
Wow.
So I think once the dust settles and the data collection starts, and our state assembly people start to look at, students who have graduated and what they've gone on to do without those assessments, I think that's going to be very telling about whether or not those assessments are really that important and that integral to them graduating from high school. So I don't think petitioning is strong enough, but I think this, like I said, capitalizing on this moment, not just the racial tension, but the pandemic and how that's impacting businesses, how that's impacting our school system. We had to go to distance learning, and that's like never been done. Going from for traditional teaching to online learning, all of our systems are going to change after this. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I have hope that it's going to be for the best.
I do. I want to come back to that as well. Pastor, I have a question for you. How do we put more people of color in positions where they significantly influence the curriculum?
More people of color are going to have to start running for these positions and doing so very seriously. There are a lot of people in every single state that could easily have won mayor or governor or councilman that aren't running. There are, how many celebrities can you think off the top of your head? You're like, I wish they would run. Even if you don't even know their policies and their stance, you're like, that would be kind of cool if they ran. There are people, like a lot of us know a lot of people that are sitting on their hands when they have potential. Whether it be they're running for an office and could actually win, but they're, I got my life, I'm successful, I got my wife, it's all good. Like, they are content, but we need them. Our communities need them, whether they be white or black. We need people that are going to stand up for truth. So I think that if you're talking about putting people in positions of power, people first have to want those positions of power. If the doctor's like, yo, I'm not trying to be principal, you're not going to make a principal. So we have to have more people stand up as leaders to say, I will take that. We have to have people stand up that are serious, because let's just face it, our people don't take our people serious until they show that they are serious. It's kind of like, oh, wait, no, you're super serious. Okay, cool. Or is you kind of like one of those? So we even have the joke, right? CP time. Like, we all know it's just stupid. So we have to be able to take up leadership and be able to be just out there. We have to be extreme. I have to see the how Kanye West believes in something, and you gonna know he believe in it. That's what everybody has to do. So that's what I think is really gonna take. You have people that want to follow something, but there's no organization. You have people that want to do something. I know people left and right that want to take their kids to protest, but they're afraid they're going to get gassed and have rubber bullets shot at them. So they need an organizer. They need organization and leaders that are going to say, we're going to do it this way. Let's show up in this way. Let's show up at this council meeting, or let's show up at this government building, and let's make sure there is no looting, or, whatever it be, roundtable discussion, whatever. We need more leaders that have these expansive ideas to actually have their voice heard with those and actually voice those opinions to give people the platform. I did want to make a quick comment on what you guys are talking about with being a Black student and being able to change things for Black students. I just thought the fact of I'm always taught in school, stop, dropping, but I ain't never been on fire. I'm trying to think, and I can only remember one kid whose house burned down in school. That wasn't really much of a threat, but you know how many people I know that's been shot by cops.
Mm-hmm.
So you're teaching me something that, I mean, this is tornado drills. I understand a tornado may come. School shooting, you're teaching me how to run as it. I understand. So why aren't you teaching me that I need to do certain things as a Black male? It's different for me. It's different for me than it is for everybody else. So why am I not? I'm learning to stop, drop, and roll, but I'm not learning what my rights are. Do we know what our Miranda rights are? If I call my nephew right now and say, hey, what are your Miranda rights? He's going to be like, who's Miranda? I don't know her. I swear. Hey, I don't know no Miranda. What she tell you? I've been, don't even know our rights. Everybody out here fighting for rights. We got our rights. They can't even tell you our 5 civil rights that we fighting for. So we got to educate people, and we have to let them know, listen, I'm a Black male. I'd much rather know what my rights are left and right than know what to stop, drop, and roll, because that's real survival for me. That's just something that was just extra real quick. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
For sure. And I think that's important when we're trying to educate how to survive and how to thrive in this situation that we're looking at. Because like you said, it's not going to change tomorrow. It's not going to change next week. And it's probably not going to change next year. When you're talking about a release of power or relinquish of power, the people who have power, never in history have they just given it up.
No.
Never throughout history. It's like, all right, you know what? You're right. We was hurting you too much. We killed your people. Here's some power. Just take it back. You know, let's keep it. It's good. It's never happened. It's never happened in history. And so what I see coming is, yes, there is a transition of power. There is a shift. There is a change, and an understanding of just the understanding of where that lack of power was stolen from you from is a retaking of that power, right? This process of education, this process of sitting down around with other Black individuals who have made it and become successful at what they want. This is how I did it, and this is how we can do. This is taking back our power, right? This is not easy. And as we continue to talk and as we continue to organize and say what are the issues, what are the problems, how do we put forth resources to affect those things, the more that the people who have power start to lose it, and then say, okay, we got a problem. We can't have that. So it's going to be this clash, this battle. And so I want to be able to put in place all the insurance, because they have insurance for the businesses that they're burning down. They have insurances for them cars that they're blowing up. They have insurance for all of that, right? But there's no insurance for the Black man whose knee was on his neck. There's no insurance for the Black man who was sitting in the car with his children in the back seat. There's no insurance for the Black man who's standing on the sidewalk with a cigarette, selling it for 25 cents each. There's no insurance for the guy who did not have a gun, who ran away from the cop because he was scared, because he already knows what he want to do, and still got shot in the back. There's no insurance for that. We don't come back from that. You can't give us anything to repay for that injustice or for that loss. You know, so if we're working on something here, we should build some sort of insurance for our community, for our people, to know that, okay, we're asking for this, but if you don't get it, I'm insured this way. Because my people, we created an association in the community, a community where we can reinvest these things and these skills. So it's been an excellent conversation. I want to continue the organizing part of it. What I have gathered, and I want everybody to know out of this conversation, is what is needed right now is a structural foundation of workshops where we can start applying these into our educational communities, right? Our school systems, where we can teach teachers how to deal with children, and how that's the one. And the two is, how do we provide a structure or a foundation where students feel like they have a future that is invested in them, where they are not just going to go out into the world and hopefully find a job, but there's something that's being in place to help them achieve what they are already fascinated with, what they're already in love and passionate about. That structure is not there, and especially not there for the Black children. And so, how do we create that structure? And that's the conversation I want to continue with you guys. Final question, though, is for the doctor, and that is, what, when you were working with the students, and as you see these, you just recently had a graduation, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Where you traveled around to the different communities, and
Well, that was
you
a
see
parade. We had a
the
we had a
parade.
parade. Mhm.
It wasn't a graduation. It wasn't
We
a
so
parade.
we had a graduation. That was a virtual graduation. We recorded it on our football field. So that was like, I gave my speech, the valedictorian, salutatorian gave their speeches, that kind of thing. And then we announced their names. It'll be re-edited, and then their kids' pictures will show up and all of that. So that hasn't happened. We just recorded it. And then last week we did a car parade where 53 members of my staff, we've all gotten our cars and we drove around the entire neighborhood of our school district. And that was for all of our students. That was just to say, hey, what's up? We love you guys. We miss you type of a parade.
Well, the question is, in this time that you've been, I don't know if you can actually see the result of this in such a short amount of time, but the time that you have been teaching, doing homeschooling, and teaching online, how has that affected the children of color that are already in hard situations that you have traveled to through this parade?
I think it has impacted them more social, emotionally speaking. We have a lot of kids who are, even before George Floyd, this is when the pandemic hit. And I saw firsthand, just hearing from our parents, a lot of our kids of color, the parents lost their jobs, companies folded, hotels, things of that nature were closed. So a lot of families parents were unemployed. And the children themselves, it's some of my seniors, some of my juniors had to go out and get jobs, to help their families. So they weren't able to log into their teachers' classrooms and continue to do school from home. They were actually became the financial providers for their homes. So I saw kids who took that burden on and were traumatized, though, in the process with all of that. You have a lot of hopelessness and despair that was going on even before the racial tensions that we're dealing with right now. But with the pandemic itself, you saw a lot of kids just really shut down, and just this spirit of despair. I really just saw that over the students, kids feeling like, what's the point? But why do I need to even continue with my education at this point? I don't know what my future is even going to look like. We don't even know what the world's going to look like a month from now. And I just saw degrees of that, over the time that we've been distance learning. And I have to say, now we're kind of like on the upstart of it. Like I'm seeing more kids kind of tap in and want to see things change. Sorry for my phone ringing.
That's fine.
But just seeing more kids who are just tapped out. I'm sorry about that. And just shutting down from the system and just feeling like, they don't see a point in what's going on. So my task for me and for my staff when we come back to school is really increasing our social emotional support for students, kids who are now traumatized by the social and civil unrest, the pandemic, unemployment that has come as a result of that. Students who've now had to change what their post high school plans were going to be. Some kids were set to go off to college. Some students were set to go off just to community college. That has even changed now. And now they've got to stay home and help provide for their families. So it's going to be a lot of emotional support that students are going to need to get them back on their feet and just back in the right headspace. And that's something I've been working with my clinical staff over the 3 months that we've been closed, really reaching out to families, reaching out to students, staying in touch with them. I know at the beginning of the pandemic, we had created what we called a missing in action list. And these were kids who have just checked out completely. Teachers had no track of what was going on. They were calling the homes. They weren't getting any type of responses. They would email the kids. They would get no responses. We did make a couple of home visits to families to see, you know, if the families are okay. And we've had a lot of kids who were impacted by COVID. You know, a family member was ill and got the illness. So we have our work cut out for us come fall. And even at this point, we don't even know what fall is going to look like.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we don't, and it's just the work that we do here. We really don't know what tomorrow's gonna look like ever. And to me, it's we're in a situation where the veil has been lifted, right?
Mhm.
You've never had any type of certainty. It's
Right.
never been there,
True.
you know.
Mhm.
Now we're in a place where people are more aware of that, and so all this confusion. I thrive in this moment because I always knew today is an adventure. Tomorrow's an adventure. The next day is an adventure. I'm gonna wake up in the morning and say, God, lead my steps, because I don't know where I'm gonna be. Right. And
Exactly.
so now it's just about what actions do we take on this adventure to make sure that we can have something behind us in place where the people who taken those steps right after us can say, oh, see the map, oh, he did this, so now I can go through this path, and because it's been cleared for me already. And
Mhm.
so I think that's the moment that we're living in. It's always been uncertain, but now the veil has been lifted, that everybody now realizes it. And so finally, I just one last question: is there any books that you guys recommend for anti-racism and to educate ourselves on what's happening right now as far as the social movements that are going on?
There's a book that I want to share with my staff. I'm like nervous to share with them, but I want to do a whole faculty read on white fragility. And I don't know if you're familiar with that book. Um,
Who's it by?
the author's name escapes me right now, but that's the most recent book that I read about white fragility, and it's really just about white people, and not just white privilege, but it's about them recognizing their role in racism, whether it was intentional or not, and just recognizing that people of color are not invisible, and that even as much as they want to try to make you feel invisible, that they aren't, and that there's a role that they have to play in that. And it first comes not just going through equity training or tolerance, which I hate that word, training, but really learning and recognizing within themselves, what are some of my own biases that I've had about people who don't look like me or who didn't come from my background or my neighborhood. So that particular work really goes in on that, for white people. So I would highly recommend that.
Okay. Fragility. Pastor.
I like, it's actually a movie. I don't know if it is a book. It could be a book, but I really would tell people to watch the movie, even if it is, just because the movie is just so graphic that it just hits you a different way. And it's called American History X.
Mm.
And I like that movie because it shows a different side. The main character, the leader of the skinheads in a certain faction in California, he's like second in command of like the Venice Beach skinheads. And it shows you like why he developed his hate for black people. And then it shows you him going to prison and changing and getting back out. And it's just so powerful because everything I have definitely read and saw, you know, and seen, it's been from the viewpoint of the black person. And I've never seen like the story of how this hate developed in this white guy. So that's one of my favorite ones, and it's so good. Like you gonna hate this guy in the beginning, but it comes around. But
Yeah, I seen it. It's definitely part of my historical education, for sure. I really want to thank you guys for joining me on this discussion today. It's been awesome and magnificent to have you. I want to let you or allow you to go ahead and tell me, the audience and everybody who's watching, how they can get in touch with you or your foundation or your work, and how they can donate or be involved in what way.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you, Hero, for just giving us this platform and allowing us to participate in this very important conversation. I'm so humbled by it. I appreciate it. As I said before, anyone wants to email me with any questions or just a word of support, I'm at tsmith1275 at hotmail.com. I'm not on any of the Instagrams or any of that. You know, as I said, I'm very old school. And as a principal, you kind of have to be under the radar with all of the social media thing. But I'm open to email, definitely.
Absolutely. We'll put that in the description.
All right. Thank you.
Absolutely.
In the same, definitely thank you for having us, Hero. Thank you, Doc, for being a fantastic co-guest. It's been a
And you as well.
yes, thank you. Thank you to even you. I think this is like your audio engineer back there, like handling everything on the boards and stuff with the making that possible. For myself, you can find me on Facebook, Elijah Bryant III. Elijah like the Bible, Bryant like Kobe, 3 eyes. Find me on Facebook. Black Focus Society is on Facebook as well. The group, you can come in there even if you want to give 3 minutes a day to go like post. We love you. Thank you for that. Email is elijah@blackfocussociety.com. And my Instagram is Elijah_Bryant_3. So definitely contact me. Any debates you got about religion, politics, that I'm with all the smoke. Please let me know. Any types of anything that's going on. I want to keep a pulse on the different things that's going on in different communities because I'm in Los Angeles. I don't know what's going on in Illinois. And the things that we are building with Black Focus Society, we're one of the chapters in every state. They just passed a law in Illinois that makes a felony to actually film police officers, and we wouldn't know that people in Illinois. So definitely just contact me with any type of anything to keep my finger on the pulse of what's going on. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. And thank you to the team who has put this discussion together. I really appreciate everyone's help and everyone's work. It's been an absolute blessing for everybody who's given this movement their energy to make it succeed and progress. It's been an absolute blessing, and I'm really thankful and really appreciative of it all. If you'd like to donate, you can see our Patreon on the website in the description below. Just a small monthly donation will help us get the resources that we need to continue to provide for the things that we discuss here. As I said before, we're going to sit and talk a little bit more about organizing something to help the schools and the children. So we thank everybody for tuning in. We hope that you have a blessed day, and thank you for tuning into the Black Caucus movement. Let's work together to make something better. Blessings, everybody.
Blessings.
Blessings.